Welcome back, everyone. This is Kevin with the Jaywalkers Recovery Podcast. Today in the studio, I have Greg J. Greg, what is your sobriety date?
My sobriety date is April 27th, 1987.
Holy shit, that's a lot of years. 87, I was 7 years old when you got sober. I always like to say that.
And I'm hearing it more and more. Did drink and I didn't die.
Greg, what is your home group?
My home group is the Aloha Men's Group in Aloha.
And I have very fond memories getting sober in that group. A couple things I wanted to talk about real quick before we get going. One is you are an artist, and I just want to say I really enjoy when you do a painting and you post it up on Facebook of your cat or your dog or some kind of watercolor. And there's a certain level of comedy related to a lot of your artwork. And I wanted to really talk about early sobriety. It was really special. And I was actually thinking about it yesterday, how I got a birthday card from you, like a personal. So for those of you listening, Greg at Aloha Men's Group, which was my home group at the time too, Greg would draw these spectacular little hand-drawn birthday cards. And I looked everywhere. I know I have it somewhere in a shoebox or somewhere. I looked everywhere for the one that you did for me. And it was something about me being a fisherman. I was, a better fisherman than a, sober member of Alcoholics. I don't know, remember what it was, but it was very, it had a lot of humor. And I was getting emotional last night thinking about early sobriety, how much of a wreck I was, and how cool it was that you did these little cards for people.
Yeah, I really enjoy that. And I've been doing it for years. I haven't turned it over to anybody else. I'm willing to, if somebody who wants to do it, I'll happy turn it over. But I say, sometimes I go, I'm getting done. I mean, some people have done 15 cards for it. I'm like, what do I do this year? And then something always comes. And once I get the idea, then the stress is gone because I could do the drawing. But it's just something I really enjoy. It's I get to do homages to my friends, or I get to troll them, or I get the combination of both. It's just fun, and it's just kind of reinforces my gratitude for AA and my friends in AA and the talent that I was given and the ability to develop it.
Awesome.
It's a lot different than when I was out there, easy for sure.
Yeah, it's really a cool thing that you do for the men and the low men's. I don't know if you still do it or not.
Yep, still do.
That's awesome. Real quick, so we want to jump into your story. You can start anywhere. If you want to talk about your childhood, some people don't like to do that because they don't want to talk about their parents or whatnot. Maybe they might listen. I don't know. Or you can start when you first, took a drug or took a drink and take us on a story. Either red. There you go.
All right. Anyway, to start, I was born in Northeast Ohio, suburb of Cleveland, about 23 miles east of Cleveland, near Lake Erie, which is just wonderful to grow up near that body of water. But I'm the third of 7. There's my older sister, my older brother, myself, and a little bit of a pause, and then 4 younger sisters in rapid succession. So it's in a way that's the family was sort of divided, with my sister as the queen of the siblings, right? Own room. My brother and I shared a room, and then the 4 girls shared a room, and my parents. So my dad was a sales manager for publications, and he was a drinker. We grew up in a neighborhood. We were kind of one of the first houses in what became a pretty huge housing development. So my dad and my other 2 neighbors were by default the executive board of the neighborhood, charge of the welcoming committee. They had neighborhood golf tournaments. I have a really kind of fond memories of watching all the grown-ups party, and it was the 60s, and a lot of beer drinking, a lot of I don't remember anything much except for the sort of the joy and the happiness and the chatter, and it was something that I wanted to do. Um, I know that my father was probably an alcoholic. My mom may or may not have been an alcoholic. She was certainly an Al-Anon of a high order. Um, and my dad was a disciplinarian. He was the third of 9 children. His oldest brother was killed in World War II. His second oldest brother um, was in the Marines in the Pacific Theater during the World War II, and he was PTSD and one of us. So he was apparently a hellraiser. Just as an aside note, he showed up at our house in the late 60s in an old Mercedes Benz diesel, drove down from Alaska to make an amend to my dad because he'd gotten sober. And so he was sober for 12 years, I think. And the only time I ever saw him was on that trip. And he was entertaining, big, burly, redheaded guy, looked a lot like my dad. But uh, the upshot of that story, he did not stay sober, and he died of complications from a gunshot wound received by his wife. So that's what happened. But my dad was a very disciplined drinker. He got loaded on the weekends. He sometimes overfilled the holes. I remember he used to quit drinking for Lent. I grew up Catholic. He quit drinking for Lent, so it was just 40 grueling days of restless, irritable, and discontent dad. And then he'd unload on us over Easter weekend. What bunch of dirtball children. So, so he was a tough dad. He was a tough dad. He was very critical of me. And of course, my self-esteem was always kind of in the toilet. I was always kind of a little kid, small for my age, sensitive, um, artistic. I had all these characters that weren't considered particularly manly back then, and I wasn't a great athlete. I was game as hell. I really, I worked hard. I had hustle. That was the one. Even to this day, that's all I got is hustle. But anyway, I did go to a Catholic school. Went to the same school from kindergarten through 8th grade. So grew up with the same cohort of kids. We were all close to each other. I was reasonably popular. It was pretty small school, so we knew everybody. So even the nerds and the misfits and the geeks and the, we didn't pick on them. At least we treat them well. I had 250 acres of woods to play in, so we had these epic army battles, epic apple fights, because the neighborhood that we grew up in used to be an orchard. So I had a lot of fun. But I was the little brother. All the other boys in the neighborhood were my brother's friends and not mine. So I was the little brother. I always felt like everybody was in a group and then it was me. Just like, so short story is I was an alcoholic waiting to happen, I think. And anyway, I went to school for 8 years with this cohort of kids. Um, I we sort of fell on some hard financial times in my house, so I wasn't able to go to the private Catholic high school. So I went to the public school. It was my first experience in public school, and it was a culture shock.
And what grade was that?
That was 9th grade.
Ninth grade. So you went elementary school, junior high, and then like we can't afford private school anymore. We're gonna shove you into
Right.
Okay.
Right. So 9th grade was like, back then it was junior high school. So junior high school was 6, 7, or 7, 8, 9. I went in there in 9th grade, so already I'm should be like the top of the top of the heap, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not. I'm like a ninth grade freshman, like new kid, new me, had to fight, you know, got picked on. I also was introduced to pot because I'd walk to school with some neighborhood kids, and we would walk and go through the woods, and we would get high. And it took several times, but the first time I got stoned, I remember just being in homeroom and going, "Wow, this is cool," and everything's that going well. And every time I said something, I'm like, "Did I just say something?" And but I remember like smoking pot and talking with the people around me, and they're all laughing, and it's like I'm funny, you know.
Yeah.
And it felt kind of like how I was in when I was comfortable with these other kids, right? So it really pot was weird because I felt like very uninhibited, but I was also very self conscious at the same time. So paranoid, I guess you
Yeah.
could call it. But anyway, that's how I started my using career, smoking pot. I I adjusted. I adjusted by becoming just a partier. I didn't really have a lot of opportunity to drink because I was 14 years old and I looked like I was 12. So I I mean, when I was in eighth grade and I played CYO football, and four of us stole an 8-pack of Rolling Rock off a truck that was open. The guy was making a delivery and he left the side open. We grabbed an 8-pack and we ran into the woods and drank it. And I remember, like, first time I ever had a real beer, like I took a sip and it foams up in my mouth. And I'm like, oh, this is awful. But it was I didn't get the buzz off the alcohol, but I got a buzz off stealing the beer and taking it with
Yes.
my football buddies, right? So that was part of it. First time I ever drank was the last day of junior high school. And a friend of mine's parents were at home and he got in the liquor cabinet. And I remember him pouring me a screwdriver that was in like a parfait glass, like where those fluted ice cream glasses. And vodka and orange juice, and there was so little orange juice in it that you could actually see through it. So I mean, it was a ton of booze, and I chugged it. I drank it like I've always been a chugger, you know.
Same.
Just so I drank it way fast, and I felt great for. We were walking again I, to the mall or something, you know. And I remember just feeling great. And these guys are the best guys in the world, and just like I was cured. And then I got sick. And I got sick out of every orifice. I'd never been sicker in my life. And my friends, I mean, this is a microcosm of what my drinking career was basically like. Because my friends just ditched me in the woods. So I'm in the woods covered with pine needles and I'd thrown up and
Well, do you actually remember all this? Did you black out or were you awake for
I
yes.
remember, I remember I think there was a blackout between the time I felt great and the time I got stuck,
Okay.
right? And I remember waking up in the woods and I knew I had to go to work. I was a pool attendant at the local swimming pool. So I went to work and I must have just smelled and looked like shit. But I go into work and I'm bragging to this girl that I kind of liked that I'd gotten drunk and it was really cool. And I wanted to do it again. When I was 4 or 5 years old, I was at a family picnic, kind of family reunion kind of thing, and barbecue and eating burgers and stuff. And I had cheesecake with cherries on it. And then I went out on the playground and we were playing on one of those carousel things. And my brother and my cousins were pushing me around really fast and I got sick. And I threw up the cheesecake. And I've never had cheesecake again. But booze, it wasn't the same. I was like, I want to do that as soon as possible. And I had opportunities, but not as many as I did. I mean, there's a lot of drugs in my story, but drugs are partially because I couldn't drink. And I don't think I knew that at the time. I didn't think I knew that, like, I need to drink. It's just I need to feel differently than I feel now.
Yeah.
And sometimes as soon as I felt differently, I was like, I wish I didn't feel like this. But it's kind of like somebody would put 5 pills in my hand and go, eat these, and I'd eat them. And then, of course, I come into AA and people say, trust God. And I'm like, you got a contract? Is this in writing? But anyway, that's kind of a pillhead. I was um, smoked dope every time I could, drank anytime I could. Um, the 12 questions or whatever that they ask you if they're doing an assessment on whether you're an alcoholic or not. And I lied my way down to like 4 and I was still an alcoholic, that kind of thing. But one of them was, did you ever drink in the morning? And I said no. And I sincerely believed it. But I have this memory of chugging a 40-ounce on the way to a quart at the time. I'm waiting for the school bus, in the dark in the morning. And one of my classmates had a quart of beer and I'm drinking beer at the school bus at 6 in the morning or whatever. So anyway, I was one of those students that I was, winner in a walk. I was pretty intelligent, so I had a really good education in elementary school, my first 8 years. So a lot of the stuff in high school was repeat. So I could really phone it in and spend a lot of time just in the over the hill, as we called ourselves, the over the hill gang. And we'd go out in the back of the school and party. And so I spent most of high school stoned. I remember having to take my final driver's test for driver's ed, and I'd smoked some weed that had angel dust or something in it. And I had never been that fucked up before or since, but somehow I managed to pass that driver's test. I don't know how I did it. I just did. But anyway, I graduated from high school with no distinction whatsoever. Um, that's not to say I wasn't interested in some school and I wasn't good at some things, but I had potential that I just didn't live up to. I was a pretty good runner, but the track coach hated me because I was a hippie, so I didn't bother. I quit pretty quickly. First confrontation I had with him. So anyway, I graduated from high school and I went to junior college, local 2-year college, and when was interested in school and also kind of realized that this wasn't high school. It was on me. I um but I was sporadic. I would go for a quarter and then drop out because I was out of money, and I'd work and then spend all my work money getting high, um and I had really, a lot of pressure from my dad, and I had a lot of confrontations with my parents about my using and my lack of direction. So, but one day, and this is my first bout with pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization, where I had was driving home from somewhere high, drunk, and I crashed my car into a telephone pole near my house. It was snowy, so I slid into a telephone pole, and then I got the car home and I parked it in the driveway and went home, went up to my bedroom and passed out. And about 10 in the morning, my dad comes shuffling up the stairs and kicks open my door and goes, "What the hell happened to your car?" And I said, "I think somebody hit it in the parking lot." And he just gave me this look of, I've never seen a look of disgust on his face that I saw. He just stared at me for what seemed 5 minutes. And then he just turned around and slammed the door, walked back downstairs. And so I got out of bed and I look out the bedroom window and there's like skid marks into the telephone pole, back from the telephone pole, across my mom's rose garden, you know, transmission fluid and radiator coolant, and my car is kind of parked sideways in the driveway, and I'm like,
You're like, oh, I
So
don't think that lie's gonna
yeah,
take.
yeah, no, that's not gonna hold up. So I'm just laying there trying to get the courage to go downstairs, and my mom goes, "Greg, telephone." So I come down, and it's a Marine Corps recruiter, and he says, "Are you a conscientious objector?" And I said, "No." And so anyway, I joined the Marine Corps.
I did not
Reserve.
know that about you.
Yes, I was one of Uncle Sam's misguided children.
And what year was this?
This was 1977.
Okay.
So it was during the Carter administration. Good time to be in the service if you didn't want to go to war. But anyway, I went into boot camp a couple months after. I deferred my entrance until June because I was ostensibly still in school. In fact, I think I was still in school. But anyway, I went into boot camp, and my nickname in boot camp was Shaky Jake. And what it turns out is that I had the DTs when, like, I was enough of an alcoholic that I actually had withdrawal. So I had the DTs my first week or so in boot camp. I thought it was just because I was afraid, because I mean, it was a life changer.
Yeah.
So anyway, I got through boot camp, and I got through my training and and I was a pretty good Marine when I wasn't a reservist, when I was in active duty, because you kept between the rails. They Back then, I think it's less so now, but back then they covered for you if you drank a lot. They kind of encouraged it. As long as you got you what I do is I get my fatigues ironed and everything squared away, everything laid out for the next morning, and I could just kind of pour myself in there and manage to get into the formation. But I still got in mild trouble. Once I got out of active duty, I came back and I finished my associate's degree. Um, I was in the reserves, and I was at a drill, and I got really shit faced. We all went out, and then the following day, I woke up in my car, right, and I was supposed to be, and so anyway, I got in trouble. They never said, "Do you have a problem with alcohol?" They just said, "You have a problem with attendance and attitude." No, and of course, it's like a lot of us, we're really good at stuff, and then we tear it all down with drinking. So that was kind of my career, and anyway, I ended up when I was discharged, I got a bonus, and so I went to Columbus to go to school. And I went to school for a couple quarters until that money ran out. I drank a lot of it away. Um, I turned 21 not long after. I see turned 21 on a Sunday. And back then you could get high alcohol on so I just remember making up for it the following Monday. It's just not a good day to be shit faced, but it's funny that my home group's on a Monday when I think about it. I could probably need that on Monday, but anyway. Anyway, um I quickly spiraled down. I, I don't want to spend a lot of time on the drunk log, but I spiraled down. Let's just say, and I became unemployed and unemployable. Um, it's easy when you live in a college town because you could always find people that like to party, and you always find, you could front for a keg of beer and maybe pay a month's rent and be good, and then I just kept finding lower companions and living in worse neighborhoods and being less and less successful. I drove a cab in my genius. I thought, well, I'm not going to get in line at the airport with all these other drones. I'm going to drive the bad neighborhoods where nobody wants to go. So I would go and get robbed. One night, somebody stuck something hard in the back of my head, and I was mad. I had $37, I think, and he asked for it. I said, "Fuck you." Go ahead and shoot me, because I didn't care, right? And then he just opened the back door and ran away. And so I remember turning in my cab, taking that $37, going out for breakfast because I was driving at night. And of course, because it was actually, I was off work. I remember having ham and eggs and a beer at the bar. And it was just it was sort of that thing. And I had a roommate who he would, he would drink like half a pint of whiskey, and then his eyes would roll back in his head and he'd pass out. And I'd drink the other half and wish there was more. And he went into treatment. So this was 1982. He goes into treatment. I've got his car. So I'm like, well, I should at least go visit Dave in treatment. So I go to an AA meeting, and this woman's leading, and she partied like I did. She's kind of good looking. I'm thinking of hitting on her at the end of the meeting, right? And then she starts talking about God, and then my mind just went boom. I mean, I could feel like just her lips moving, right? Yeah. And I'm like, okay, this is an Amway deal, like a pyramid scheme, right? I got to get 10 of my friends to join and sell big books at the airport. And so I just said, not for me. My problem really at that time was I couldn't get enough to drink. Yeah. And it was like I tried to keep the party going, and it was increasingly difficult and increasingly less satisfying. So anyway, the bottom line is, but I remember like holding hands during the Lord's Prayer and going, for some reason, this isn't bad. And I also remember going, I don't want to look at anybody, because if I make eye contact, they're going to know that I know that they know that I know that they know that I know, right? That I knew that they knew I was an alcoholic, but I didn't want to cop to it. So anyway, I had 5 more years of misery. I found a woman, very much an enabler. We became friends. She wanted to have more than a friendship. I didn't, but she put pressure on me. I'm not blaming her at all, but I succumbed to the pressure because she was good. She was a good enabler, you know? And so we got married, and so I had all the trappings of beer drinking regular guy. Yeah. So I remember this is towards the end too. This is like the little interior collapses that happened.
Yeah.
That we'd gone out. I had turned 30 that year, and that was my 30th birthday was the last fun I ever had drinking. All right. So this was 90 or 86, turned 30. She turned 20 something in January of 87. And I'm at this birthday party for her at a bar, and all her friends are having a good time. And I remember, again, it was like all the sound went out of the room. And I was like, I am so alone. I am so fucking unhappy. And I just started sobbing. I couldn't stop. I mean, I'm in this bar and I'm sobbing. And so my wife and I are walking back home after the party, and she's berating me because I ruined her night like an asshole. And she was right. But we're walking, and we go by this fraternity house, and these guys are all out on the front porch drinking, and they start making lewd comments at my wife. And I went ape shit. I just ran up there, you motherfuckers, and I weighed 120 pounds soaking wet, right? And I'm just calling these guys out, like shrieking on their porch, and they're all in the house, like looking out through the curtain, like, this motherfucker's crazy. So, and my wife's like, well, that was very gallant of you, but you need help. I was like, yeah, I do. And then, so it was like really earnestly trying to control my drinking, and because I wanted to protect my drinking still, I wasn't ready. But in the meantime, one of my younger sisters was in a thing called ACA or ACOA at the time, Adult Children of Alcoholics. And she was telling me all this stuff. And so I was getting educated about alcoholism. And the message for me was like, okay, I'm fucked up because my parents were horrible. It's their fault, right? And so anyway, she had arranged this intervention. So we go up for this intervention. My parents are like, screw you, we're going to Florida. So I'm out drinking. So I go out with my family and we're all drinking at a restaurant and talking about what horrible alcoholics our parents are. And I remember, like, I was paced off my brother. And I remember he wasn't drink. He was nursing his beer. I'm like, fuck. So anyway, then we get back home. We're all staying at my parents' house. And I hear my sister and my brother talking. And I'm like, oh, shit. I'm like, they're going to intervene on me because they need to do, you know, like sex. You got to, once you get started, you got to finish it off. So they're going to do the intervention on me. Well, it turned out as we're driving back to Columbus that my brother said he was an alcoholic. And I'm like, that can't be. I drink more than him. And I already had all this other evidence that, well, I drink 18 beers a day. That's probably not a good sign. My parents are alcoholics, probably not a good sign. And my brother's an alcoholic, so what's that make me? But also on the way up to that intervention, he took my inventory and he took it accurately. And he took it in a way that I was receptive to it. So I really could see my defects. He said, you foment all this discord among people and then you come out smelling like a rose. And I did. I mean, it was very manipulative, very, I was a weasel. I could get out of trouble. I could get I was very facile. I'm a good liar, still am. Sometimes I think that's a good lie. I hate to waste it. But anyway, he called me. I kind of internalized it. And I also remember thinking like, oh my God, he's sober. I can't hang out with him anymore. He's one of my best friends too. And so, but I did go over to his house he was sober 3 weeks. He was sober 20 days. And I went over to his house and he's walking around and he's got a cup of coffee. He's got his infant son and he's on a pink cloud. And he's telling me, he says, they say you shouldn't 12-step your family, but he 12-stepped me. He said, just try it for 90 days. We'll refund your misery. He had all the same. One day at a time. Yeah. Yeah. So it was perfect for both of us because he had the newcomer energy and I was like desperate.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm going to go. And I remember I went back home and it was Sunday morning. And my problem was always like getting to Sunday afternoon before I started drinking. I'm like, what am I going to do? So I'm tossing and turning and so I go out to my car to get my directory that he gave me. And I'm walking back to the house and my neighbor comes around the corner and slaps a beer in my hand. So I drink in the beer and I'm like, this isn't a good idea.
Yeah.
And I've got this directory and I feel like I'm carrying like the size of that amp. It's like, oh, my neighbor's going to see I'm going to AA. Oh my God. So little directory. And so anyway, I drank this.
What neighbor needed the directory?
Oh yeah. My neighbor, I think he genuinely was a certain type of hard drinker.
Okay.
Because he was my alcoholic sponsor. I drank a lot with him, and he was a school teacher, big brawny dude, and he drank, and he didn't seem to have the baggage that we have. So I don't know. I can't.
Maybe one of the hard drinkers the book talks about.
Yeah, and he died a few years early, right? In fact, my whole crew is gone. Everybody I drank with is no longer alive. But anyway, so I drank this beer with him, and then my other neighbor came over, and he had a bottle of rum and a big Jamaican spliff because he had just been to Jamaica, and I'd taken care of his dog while he was gone. So he shared that with me. And I'm drinking this Jamaican rum, and I go, this is the last drink I ever had. It's kind of nice. And it was. Because the next day, I went to a meeting there was a 5:45 meeting, and I went right after work. I figured because I used to carpool with a friend of mine, and we would never be able to, he was definitely one of us, but we could never get home because one of us always wanted to drink. There was never a time that both of us didn't want to drink. So that day I didn't go with him, and I went to this meeting, and it was all these Actually, I think it was later in the day. I think I didn't go to the 5:45 till 2 days later. I went to this meeting and I heard this black guy talk, and he was older, although probably younger than I am now. And he was like, just harrowing story, sterno drinking, heroin, uh, crime, getting shot at. And I was like, wow, this is hardcore. But then he talked about like growing up and how he felt as a kid and how he felt like he never fit in and how he felt different and how he didn't have the instruction manual that everyone else had. And I said, yeah, I felt like that. So by the time that guy was done speaking, I stood up and said, I'm Greg, I'm an alcoholic. And I talked to this kid with like 44 days and he kind of showed me the ropes and told me about this other meeting. So I went to this meeting. We always called it the 5:45 meeting, and it actually had a name, but I don't remember the name of it. But we went to this meeting. How are we doing on time, by the way? Because I'd like to talk about being sober.
36 minutes.
Oh, okay, that's cool. I was sober longer than I drank, but I need to get to my sober story. So anyway, I went to this 5:45 meeting, and it was like 35 people with a total sobriety of 20 years, right?
Okay.
With, the old timer had a year and a half, Raj. And man, it was like all my fears about AA went away because these people swore and some of them didn't believe in God and some of them were punk. I mean, just all young, diverse, a couple guys in suits and ties. It was just, I go to Dawn Patrol down at the Alano Club at 6:30 on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays when I go. And it reminds me of that meeting. And there's a lot of good newcomer energy there. So I go pretty regularly. But anyway, it was just, we did a lot of stuff, a lot of activity, played softball, had softball games, bowling, just plain old house parties, poetry readings, everything. It was just such a great meeting, and I expanded, I started going to more meetings. But over time, I realized that I wasn't going to stay sober on the fellowship. I had to start working the steps, but I had a problem with God. Meantime, my wife who wanted me to get sober, wasn't very happy that I was spending so much time at AA, and I was kind of a killjoy at home. I mean, I made sort of immediate amends to her. I made another amends to her a year or two after we got divorced. And then I made a third amends to her a few months before she died a couple years ago. And that amend was like, I didn't realize, but I was a worse husband sober than I was drunk. I was pretty pliable drunk, She pretty much did what she said.
Yeah.
As long as I could drink. But I had my independence, right? And I was very judgmental about all our friends who I used to party with. 2 months ago, I was partying with them, and now I'm this high horse of sobriety.
Yeah.
So that was tough. So that our marriage did end. And a lot of it was just over me being a dick, sober. So anyway, we weren't that compatible anyway. It wasn't to be anyway. So I was pretty sure I was an atheist. When I was in ninth grade, I pulled the fire alarm on a dare, and we all went out springtime. And somebody ratted me out. It was actually a classmate from St. Mary.
My brother did the same thing.
Yeah.
At the junior high, he pulled it. And someone ratted him out.
Yeah.
I remember that when I was younger.
It's cool. So anyway, this is like my falling away from God thing too. So where I got called into the dean's office and he was like, looking at my file, and he said, well, so-and-so said that you pulled the fire alarm. No, I didn't. Well, it says here you're a good Catholic boy. I'm wondering if you would swear on the Bible that you didn't. And I said, bring it on. And I immediately expected to be vaporized, right? Like turned into ashes. And I wasn't. And I feel like looking back, that was like my first like legit, like court sanctioned rejection of God. So anyway, I thought I was a hard boiled atheist, and I was even I was even even a co-founder of the Chapter 4 We Agnostics group of Alcoholics Anonymous, where we tried to leach all the spirituality out of religion, right? All the God, we don't want to talk about it. And after a few weeks of it, I was going, it seems kind of ridiculous that I'm fighting so hard to pretend I don't believe something that I clearly believe. Somehow I knew that the more I tried to resist the idea of God, the more the idea of God wouldn't go away. And so I did kind of surrender. At the same time, my sponsor was saying, like, if you don't start on your fourth step, you are going to drink. And you need to do it. And my sponsor was a remarkable guy. He was, he would say that you work a step a year. And that's not that I waited 4 years to do a 4-step, because I would have drank for sure. But he said the steps kind of work you. And I met him at a beginner's meeting where I was kind of whining that I didn't have any friends because all my old friends were gone. I didn't make any new friends. And I was expecting some sympathy. And he turned his head all the way around. It was the 80s, so he had these big owl glasses. So he looked like an owl. He looks at me, he goes, you know what your problem is? You haven't done a goddamn decision in your life. And I was like, I was mad. I was like, fuck you. I was just, yeah, I was just trying to get a little sympathy, and you're yelling at me. But I said, yeah, I have to make a decision. I have to be all. So that kind of put me in an all-in situation. But he was great. He would tell me I drove a delivery truck. And he said, do you listen to the radio? And I said, yeah, of course. And he goes, well, don't. So I drive around and, so I get over the fear of what's going on in my head.
Yeah.
Right. Brilliant. He made me graph out like my day, like 24-hour grid, and fill it out. And I'd be like, well, I still had a job, so I worked. That was a lot. There's AA meetings. There's a lot. I sleep. There's a lot. Dinner. So it's like, my day's pretty full. There's not a whole lot of days. If I go to meetings, there's not a whole lot of time to drink. Right. So, he told me to give rides to people. He said, the farther away, it's like, don't talk. He's like, people want to know how to drink, they'll ask you. He's great. But he'd say, the farther somebody lives away, the more eager I want you to drive them.
Yeah.
And of course, I had this like 66 Buick LeSabre. I put the fear of God, because I was a good driver sober. I'm used to one-eyed driving. So, but I would pick up newcomers, pick up people meetings, and I'm talking to them in the car. Right. So we're talking AA to and from, when I wouldn't put the fear of God in them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's service.
Extra 2 meetings a day.
Yeah. Yeah. And we didn't talk about, that's good. Yeah. We didn't talk about service like we do here. Like, you need to do service. Jim was just like, you need to do this for this person. You need to do that for that person, So he was great. He's good. And I'm still in touch with him. He lives in Northeast Ohio.
Wow.
So, and it's been sober pushing 6 years now, I think.
So what year did you come to the Portland area?
Oh, I moved here in 99. Anyway, real briefly, I met my wife in a meeting. And so I had dated after I split up with my wife. And of course I thought, the field was limitless. I thought, pussy would rain from heaven, right? And of course, that wasn't the way. But I dated, and my relationships got better and shorter because the amount of bullshit that either party would put up.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, but I spent a period of time where I just wasn't dating anyone, and I was really enjoying it. I was doing things with friends, you know. I was a singleton, so I could render prodigies of service, right? So anyway, my wife walks into this meeting with her auburn tresses and big Australian riding jacket, and just really interesting person. I'm like, damn, I'm attracted to her. Turns out she was attracted to me, and so, but we were, you know, we were friends, and I would watch it and say, oh, she's friends with him. She's friends with her. Oh, these people are all cool. So, you know, we just kept running into each other, and not even just AA circles. Like one of her friends was a woman that my brother had hired. So it was that kind of stuff. So anyway, we started dating, and we were, you know, pretty quickly got serious. We got married, and we had our first child in Columbus. And I celebrated 10 years of sobriety in Columbus, which I thought was just remarkable.
Wow.
Because a lot of stuff had happened. You know, my mom had died, and I was able to be there and help her. You know, I had to have, I don't know how much of an amend I made to my mom, but I had to have terrified her with my using. You know, and I'm sure she didn't like the neighbors calling to say I was passed out in their front yard, you know, on a Sunday morning. But anyway, my mom died of cancer, and I was in a position where I could move back to their house and help my dad take care of her for the end of her life. And that was a real blessing. So you know, I had that. I had a marriage. I had a child. I was working. I had a good story, right? For 10, I just remember 10 years being a remarkable anniversary. I never had friends that lasted 10 years. So anyway, my wife is a veterinary pathologist. She was working on her PhD when I met her. She was already a doctor of veterinary medicine. So I knew she was going to be the one with the career. Excuse me. So anyway, she got a job at the primate center here in Portland or Beaverton. So we moved out here. Yeah. We moved out here, and I jumped into AA pretty quick, and it was good because it was a rocky time because I didn't do well not working, and I didn't have a car. My car was a jump. My car was not going to make it to Portland, so I donated it, right? And so we didn't have two cars, and she was driving to Hillsborough. So I'd ride my bike, or take the bus or the train to apply for jobs. And I don't know. I just remember like being laying down because I couldn't get my computer to work properly. And I just remember breaking down and crying on the living room floor with my dog licking tears off my face. And I said, I somewhere in there, I realized I was going to meetings, but I hadn't found a home group yet. And so it was kind of between Lost and Found and a Low Amends.
Yep.
And what I liked about a Low Amends is everybody got a chance to share. Because when I moved here, there was birthday meetings. Every meeting I went to was a birthday meeting. And sometimes it was the same person. And I was getting mad, you know, because, you know, it's like everybody's blowing smoke up this guy's ass. And I'm like, Jesus. You know, and I'm feeling sorry for myself because I'm not this precocious newcomer. I'm just some dude from somewhere else. Who cares, right? But of course, what else happens is newcomers come. And I get to meet new people. I met you. I met, you know, Dougie and all these people have been sober like dozens of years now, which is a miracle. But anyway, it was between the Low Amends and Lost and Found, and I flipped the coin, and it was tails, which made it Lost and Found, and I was disappointed that I was Lost and Found. So I said, okay, then it's a Low Amends. So
Amends it is.
So a Low Amends it is, and it's been my home group longer than I've ever had any other home group. So I've come to love the people there. Um, I've had, when I lived in Columbus, I'm sober 12 years when I moved here. When I was close, I had Dave N, I had Jim S, I had Don J, and I had Bill G. So I had 4 sponsors.
Okay.
Here, I've been here 25 years, and I've had Charles.
Charles.
And
Shout out to Charles.
and Charles to Charles.
To get him on.
Yeah, you got to get Charles. He's great. But I asked him to be my sponsor because of his relationship with his wife. Because my relationship was kind of rocky.
Yeah.
Because she had thrown herself right into the job. I wasn't doing anything. For the first 2 months, I was unemployed. I felt really, I didn't like being dependent.
Yeah.
I've always worked. I've worked since I was 14. Even at my depths, my unemployability, I found stuff to do. Something. So anyway, it was tough, and I love the way Charles. One of the things Charles says is, I treat Margaret like I love her, even on those rare occasions I think I don't, and that just resonated.
And his saying that we're just 2 kids playing house.
Yep, exactly.
I really wanted that when I heard that.
Yeah, that's what I wanted. And we had our second child here, Angus, born in 2000. And I do want to talk about my kids and my relationship with them, kind of, and just as the gifts, the beyond my wildest dreams kind of gifts. So anyway, Charles has been my sponsor, but it took a while before I actually got close with him, like as a friend, as a person that I adore, because I was kind of the main caregiver of my kids. So I was involved in a lot of their science and sports and whatever activities. And it's a point of pride that I was pretty good at it. And it was always like, do the action, doesn't matter what you think. If I'm grudgingly taking my kids to a soccer tournament in the cold spring rain of Oregon, I don't want to do it, but it's what I need to do. And I need to, like Kelly says, I need to make sure they're having a good time. So, but I did that. But as my kids got older, I could get more involved in AA and do more social things. And what Charles and I have been doing the last probably 2.5 years is we do a daily 10-step. And there's some other guys that do it. Herb's on it.
Yeah.
And it's just been transformational, because I can't lie on paper. And, when we're reinforcing each other, because we're like, okay, this guy's been sober 40 years and he can still do this. I'm not going to achieve spiritual perfection. The best I can do is the best I can do, and acknowledge when I screw up. So, anyway, so now I've got my daughter's 29, and she's in her 4th year of med school at OHSU. So that I'm so proud of her. She's applying for residencies in anesthesiology, which is really tough. But she's got like 7 interviews lined up. My son lives in LA, and he went to Loyola Marymount for film school. So he graduated right into the writer's strike. He spent a year studying online because of COVID. So it's tough, but he's putting a life together. He got arrested at the protests, and so we had to go down for sentencing, and he was sentenced to 14 days, which we think is 14 days longer than he should go. But that's the way. Them's the rules, and he's probably handling it better than us. But again, my wife and I had it was tough. The day of it was really tough. We had a couple fights during the day over. And what I recognize is because we're sad and disappointed and angry, we're going to take it out on each other. And I was able to we made amends to each other. We were able to make amends and regroup and say, okay, we got one more day here. Let's go do something fun with the kid and turn it over. And so, but I'm proud of both my children. They've never seen me drunk.
That's a miracle.
That is a miracle. and they know what the odds are for their own drinking. I don't think either of them, right now, none of them, they're showing real sign. My son's very forthcoming with me about his partying and his, he was on a paper while waiting for trial, so he had to quit pot. And he goes, had no I didn't realize how fogged my mind was till I quit smoking pot. So I think, he might be just telling me what I want to hear, because that's what we do. But I'm confident that whatever happens, I am an example. I'm the living my life. Like I don't like AA and my life aren't separate. My life and AA are the same. It's one. It's how it's a way of life. It's a way of living. And I go to meetings. Frankly, I still get stuff out of meetings. I don't know if I would go if I didn't get something out, but I also know that I contribute. And so today, I'm just really grateful to be sober. I'm really grateful for my friends. I work hard on my relationships. Not that it's a grind. It's just that the relationships I have with people are worth putting the effort into. So
Absolutely.
So I think I'm about done.
Awesome.
So
Craig, thank you for coming in and sharing your story.
all right. Thank you,
And,
Kevin, and for making me feel so comfortable too. It's
all right. So thanks for your service at a Low Men's Group. We all love the cards. Keep it up.
Thanks.
Hey, if you're at a Low Men's Group and you're an artist and you want to kick on the baton of the card maker, you got big shoes to, But thanks again, Greg. Love you, buddy.
All right. Love you too, Kev. Thanks. Bye.